is a Ward 1 resident who a lot of people know by the name of Chris Otten. Um, and he had brought to my attention, we started rallying and protesting against a bank, I believe in Adams Morgan, where a young man had died. And so that really touched me. Um, and I really do appreciate your heart. There are a lot of people who walk by unhoused, malnutrition, uh, food starved people and don't even give a thought, but they just keep on going with their lives. And so for you to have been touched, for you to have been touched to a point where you will start Calvary really, really spoke to me. I didn't have to look at policies after that. I didn't have to look at issues after that. I knew that this is a guy I wanted to get to know, a guy I wanted to meet, and a guy that I really, really wanted to connect with. So I really appreciate
You,
that.
you're really taking me back. It was the 1970s. I remember working at homeless shelters with some heroes. You'll certainly know the name Mitch Snyder, CCNV. When he was running, we were running a peer shelter for homeless men, and then John Steinberg at Luther Place, and I was over in Georgetown at the time of when this homeless gentleman near Holy Trinity Church died, and so I got
Mm.
involved back then and started running shelters, and I've been blessed ever since. Fortunately, the things can be better. They don't have to be the way they are. Is what I always think. Things can be better. I'm thinking of 14th and V. If you, I hate to say it, but I've gone to when there's been shootings around 14th and V and saw streetlights out, and I said maybe that shooting wouldn't have happened if that streetlight had gone on. So I keep somehow there's a motivation. Things can be better, and we can make lives better, and we can, and we will, and we do. So thank you.
Yes. And actually, this is a great time while we're talking about the subject. I just want everyone to know that if you see someone homeless, if you are homeless, please do not hesitate to call the DC Shelter Hotline. That is 1-800-535-7252. That's 1-800-535-7252. In DC, we have shelter shuttles that will come and pick you up right where you are. They will make sure that you have food. They'll make sure that you have a warm blanket. Even if you don't want to go to a shelter, they will come and bring you some essential supplies that you may need, such as hand warmers and blankets and things of that nature. Even they even have hats and gloves and scarves. So please, please, if you see someone that's in need, or if you are in need, do not be ashamed. Just call. No one's going to know your personal information from the call, anything like that. We're not going to take a picture of you, anything like that. Just get some help. Hypothermia is real. Let me say this again. Hypothermia is real. So moving right along, I'm not gonna. I don't want to hold Mr. Lynch up too long. So I want to get right into some of his policies, and I want to start off with his views on the community services and the cleanliness in Ward 1. First things first is that you say you want to make our streets safer. Now, I talked about the unhoused and how that touched me personally. But you just touched on the next thing that I care about very deeply. Growing up, and sometimes even now, I can admit, 14th and V Street is where basically my family and friends are. It's where we have hung out for years. I mean, there are a couple of benches right there in front of the Reeves Center. We would go sit down, hang around there on the actual corner of 14th and V. It's like a little wall. We would all sit on the wall, play some spades or something. And I mean, we've been doing it for years now. Some people try to get us removed without understanding that there are housing conditions that we have to face. So what are your views on how you would make that street safer, the streets of Ward One safer? Um,
Well, thank you for that. Everything counts. To make it safer, everything counts. I mentioned about going to unfortunate homicide sites where a street light is out. If the street light's working, maybe the homicide wouldn't have occurred. Right now, I walk Columbia Heights fairly often. I unfortunately will often see temporary tags from out of state that are expired, that may owe thousands of dollars in fines and been unpaid. And I don't know, but I'm concerned that a lot of these out of state vehicles or the expired temp tags may somehow, some way be involved with the drug trade, buying or selling of drugs. If we had effective parking enforcement, maybe we could preclude other crimes from happening. Vacant buildings. Along Georgia Avenue, we have a lot of vacant buildings. I think Howard University has a lot of vacant buildings and storefronts. If we got those activated, more eyes on the street. So it's really a building by building, block by block situation. We need trees in three boxes. We need the streetlights to work at night. We need the buildings occupied. We need more residents who are, seeing what's going on and reporting conditions. So to make it safer, my whole thing is get back to basics. Um, Cleaner, greener, city services working. Uh, I don't want to see police sitting in SUVs looking at their phone. I'd rather them walking the beat, talking to people, talking to residents, store owners, knowing the corners. So, in my opinion, everything counts to try and make things safer. And so, community working together, I think we can make it safer. Well, we've gotten away from a lot of the things that I think used to keep us safer when you were younger and others were younger, and we've let things go. So we can do better, and we will.
I agree. There's a huge problem with. I mean, at this point, streetlights should simply be. It shouldn't be the same struggle that it's been since I started this fight in DC about 10, 15 years ago. We are still struggling for something as simple as streetlights and to make our city safe. Um, so that's something that definitely stands out to me. Now, when you talk about the cleanliness, Ward One and really all of DC, but especially in Ward One, there is a huge rat boom. There is, I mean, everywhere you go, we have a rat issue. How would you help with that?
Not know the war. The very first thing is we've got to close the bank that they got, which is you go in most alleys in Ward One, most residents, you will find broken trash and recycling cans. It's a food bonanza up and down Ward One, behind homes, behind restaurants. We need to replace garbage cans. We've got to have them secured. We have better. There's better designed garbage cans, recycling cans now that can preclude the rats to the degree that they've been using it. People need to put out their trash shorter periods of time. You can't leave it out 2 or 3 days prior to pickup because then the rats are looking to feed on it. So there's also a number of uh, you can only kill so many rats. What you have to do, we have to do birth control. There's birth control methods we can reduce the rat population. So I would say the immediate basics are replace the garbage and recycling bins, many of which are broken, which are the food source. Second, reduce the amount of time that the trash is available to be fed upon by the rats. And then let's work together when there's a rat problem identified. You have to include the neighbors in the response. It can't just be that one location. So working together, as I say, and making sure basic city services are in place, i.e., I think my garbage can's a dozen years old. And the ones up and down my alley haven't been replaced since I think Mayor Gray was in office. So again, it's not rocket science. It's the basics. We can't have. I walk 14th Street. I walk Mount Pleasant. I walk Columbia Heights. I'm seeing overflowing trash bins by the sidewalks. So a lot of the trash bins need to be picked up regularly. The litter bins. So everything from replacing the garbage and recycling bins to making sure the litter bins are picked up more regularly, reduce the amount of time the waste is in the alleys to be picked up. These are the basics that we can do to hopefully. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a rat story. I crisscross the word. Oh yeah, the rats got to the wires in my car. Oh yeah, the rats are in my garden. So everybody has a rat story.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we do. Yes, indeed. And I think that the trash cans and recycle bins are definitely key. I have gone, when you travel across the country to other cities and states, you see the types of trash cans that they use, and it just seems common sense that we should start using, or should I say, upgrading our trash cans that are safer and a little bit more sanitary.
Absolutely, they could be much more secure. My alley, I live in Mount Pleasant. My neighbors on both sides, unfortunately, have a rat problem. And to actually fix the rat problem from both my neighbors is we've got to fix the garbage cans up and down the alley. It's not just my neighbor's site. I've got to get the cans fixed and lidded and secure so that it's not a Sunday brunch every day for the rats, which it is right now. Why
Yeah,
haven't we had the cans replaced under the current council? They've not been replaced under the current council. We've fallen behind from where we were from the Jim Graham days. For those who might remember those days, I think we've fallen way behind, and we've got to catch up. So the first 6 months in office, it's a catch-up game. We've got to get back. We've got to claw our way back to where we were, and then we're going to improve.
totally agree. Now, this next issue is big for me, but before we discuss it, I'm going to show a brief clip.
Bike lanes in D.C. seem to be causing a divide. They were installed in the busy Adams Morgan neighborhood, but some say safety is still a big concern. 7 News' Carl Willis caught some of the issues on camera, all new at 11.
Adams Morgan's recently installed bike lanes aim to keep things rolling and improve safety by removing vehicle traffic lanes. But for some, it appears drivers and moped operators are taking more risks along Columbia Road. 7 News spotted drivers, including bus drivers, swerving into oncoming traffic to get around cars stopped in the road for deliveries and ride shares.
Double parking, delivery trucks are parked in the middle of the street.
We talked to Justin Sharma just moments after he had to stop in a crosswalk with his baby stroller after a driver rolled through a stop sign.
Pedestrians, little kids in the crosswalk, and that kind of thing is increasing in frequency.
But some supporters of the bike lanes like Ken Nisbet say blame the risk-taking drivers, not the system that allows him to cycle safely.
It's incumbent on all of us to be safe and actually treat each other with respect and not do stuff like that.
It's not just a safety issue that has riled opponents of these new lanes. Sean Finty says businesses like his have lost 50% of parking.
If you can put it in, you can tear it out.
Reverse it. Yeah.
Tuesday night, he and his neighbors made sure that the DOT and his council member heard their concerns in a meeting for the Kalorama Citizens Association.
Well, what I would like to do is for them to acknowledge that this has been a tremendous mistake and for them to pull it out. That has happened in other cities.
There's always going to be a period where people need a little bit more time to get used to it, and I hope that eventually people do.
And there's also talk about having designated drop-off and pickup zones here. While that is welcome to some, opponents tell me they will continue to work to have these bike lanes removed. In Adams Morgan, Carl Willis.
So, yes, bike lanes are very, very sensitive subject for me, Sir Lynch. And Quite honestly, I support the bike lanes heavily. Um, I'm a advocate for bike lanes, and I think that the city, quite frankly, still don't have enough, especially when you talked about connectability east of the river and in Ward 7 and 8 to the rest of the city. Um, will you support adding bike lanes? Will you support?
I do. I support. Look, I bike, I walk, I drive. People have those choices, and we want to make sure everyone is safe when they're doing that. My biggest concerns are, I think, with bike lanes, it's we have engineering, we have education, and enforcement to make it safe on all three fronts. But what's not happening is the enforcement side, both for drivers and for electrified bikes and scooters. When I'm walking, I can tell how often I'm crossing a crosswalk and somebody on an electrified bike or scooter keeps going anyway, even though they're supposed to give way to the pedestrian, for example. Um, we had last week two very unfortunate pedestrian deaths, or the officer and the pedestrian on 16th Street. And I believe both of those were primarily owing to dangerous drivers. I think anybody who goes on the streets of DC knows we have some very dangerous drivers who should not be driving. We have thousands of unpaid tickets, lots of citations, and I think we're at most at risk from not everyone, but there's a small handful of folks who are should not be driving, whether it's scooters, whether it's cars. Those are the real problem. Not, I don't think bike lanes per se are a problem. Streets aren't a problem. What is people obeying and abiding by the rules so we can all go about safely. As I said, I do with all three. I bike, I walk, I drive. My concern is we have the engineering. We're doing pretty well on the education. What we're lacking is enforcement, both on the scooters that are constantly going through red lights. I think pedestrians, particularly handicapped challenged pedestrians, of which we have more and more, are at high risk because they can't get out of the way in time. And the drivers who have tens of thousands. I'm sure you remember that poor that accident on Rock Creek Park where somebody had tens
Yeah,
of thousands of tickets and they killed another driver there on Rock Creek Park. These people need to be gotten off the roads. The unsafe drivers, be it of a vehicle or a moped, they need to be off the roads, and we have to do better enforcement. If we did better enforcement, I think we'd all feel safer, whatever we're doing, walking, driving, or biking.
I definitely agree with that. And the biggest thing that you said for me is the enforcement part. As a biker, the biggest, the two biggest, I think you actually said the two biggest for me as well. Number one, how are you going to make sure we start enforcing? Uh, a lot of times they're not even residents of DC. People that come in and just visit the city and just say, "Look, I'm going to park in the bike lane." Um, not only not only constituents and residents, uh, businesses. Like my bike lane is blocked by a UPS truck. It's blocked by Amazon. I mean, no one seems to be, what's the correct word, considerate
Yeah.
towards bikers. And I do get it. There are I have people in my family who will argue me down about why bike lanes does not belong in DC. Uh, but so I do get some people's sentiments. However, when you're talking about affordability, when you're talking about going green, when you're talking about environmental justice, um, this is still something, even something as simple as exercise. Some people depend on bikes to get back and forth to work for an income and take care of their families. Um,
Uh,
how are you going to enforce these
a
things?
number of things need to be done. We need to be able to identify those who repeatedly run through red lights, electrified scooters and bikes. We need to be able to have an identifier on those bikes where we can then send that person a ticket. Right now, we're not doing that. Um, right now we police have a ticket a bit can do tickets, but they don't. I'll walk in Columbia Heights, Fairmount Street. I see an expired Virginia tag, a temporary tag. It had, I think, over 90 tickets outstanding on it, and
Hmm.
tens of thousands of dollars of that should be towed. Cars like that, once you've got more than a couple tickets, they can be towed, but we're not doing that. And then we also need to sit down with Virginia and Maryland and have reciprocity that people that they pay their tickets, we will pay their tickets, but we need those jurisdictions to be helping us with enforcement of tickets their residents get here. Way too often, they're allowed to pile up tickets, and they become, I'm going to say, a lot of the ones I've seen, a lot of the expired tags or whatever, they have numerous speeding violations, numerous
Hmm.
tickets or unpaid or speeding, which puts us all at risk, whether you're a driver, a bicyclist, a pedestrian. So I think a key is getting the police to do a better job of enforcement, getting DPW to start towing the ones without significant outstanding tickets, and working with Maryland and Virginia for compliance with our parking laws. So we working together again, all agency. Yes, I understand who likes to walk certain blocks and issue tickets and or tow cars that are scofflaws, but that's what we need to do. We need to get to the nitty gritty, and we need to get the dangerous drivers off the streets, and then we'll all be a lot safer.
Well, one thing about it, we talked about enforcement a lot just now, and we also touched on earlier making our streets safer. Um, what plays a huge role is our law enforcement agency. Recently, our DC police chief and fellow woman of the gospel, uh, Chief Smith, um, just resigned. We all know about the homicide data manipulation allegations. As a council member, what would you want to see, first of all, in a new police chief? We know we have an interim right now. What would you like to see in a new permanent police chief? And also, um, what needs to be done? What legislation can be passed to make sure that our chief and our officers are accountable? Number one, and that they aren't manipulating any data, if
Yeah.
this is true.
Two things. First, a new chief. A new chief. I think it's very important that they know DC, that they come from DC, that DC knows them. DC is a small town. Everybody knows everybody.
Yes.
Kathy Lanier, Diane Grooms. Everybody knew Kathy Lanier and Diane Grooms. They go to the block festivals. They go to the community events. It's a small town. I need a chief who is on the ground in the community, in the neighborhoods where the people know the chief, respect the chief, appreciate the chief, and then wants to work together as the chief wants to work together with the community. So the key is finding the right personality who already knows DC, the streets of DC and the neighborhoods. Secondly, we can pass all the legislation we want. Doesn't mean they'll cooperate and be straightforward. The new chief has to lay that down from the beginning. We can pass all the laws we want. Doesn't mean they'll comply with them. Look, we have all the laws in place right now that I don't think our president is complying with. Um, so the fact of the matter is, we've got to have a mentality and a training that says this is how things are done. These things are wrong. We want the truth, whatever the truth is. I don't want them scurrying. Facts lie. I don't want the facts to be shifted this way or that. Just the truth, whatever it is. We can bring down the homicide rate through the right practices and right means. We don't bring it down by faking what the results are. We only really bring it down by doing the kind of work that makes the street safer.
And another thing, that I want to highlight is that I know as a city, we talked about and we have held that crime has went down. Specifically in Ward 1, it appears there's been a year-over-year rise in incidents. Maybe not as violent, mostly uh, property crimes like theft and burglary. What, in your opinion, needs to be done other than as as far as we know about the violent crimes, we know that you're talking about the lighting. We need better police presence, or should I say, a more efficient police presence. When it comes to property crimes like theft, carjacking, burglary, do you think this is a just a poverty based issue, or do you think there
I,
are other things that can be done?
I think we can reduce the crimes, these crimes you're talking about, with a very effective public education campaign. People know to do certain things, but then they don't. I can't tell you how often I will see some younger person, they're looking at their cell phone as they're walking down the streets in the
Yeah,
night and the evening. They're not paying attention to the around. They should be, they know they should, but they're not. I can't
right.
tell you how often I see a Maryland delivery driver, a Virginia delivery driver. Oh, I'm just going to be a minute. Their car is running when they're dropping off the whatever they're dropping off. People know to lock their back door, but I can't tell you how many times a neighbor have told me, "Oh, it was my fault. I forgot to lock the back door last night." People go down the alley, they check the door. Sure enough, somebody's left their back door unlocked.
Yeah.
Half of our crimes, I think, are crimes of opportunity, and we know better. We know to lock our doors at night. We know to don't leave the car running. We should be paying attention when we're walking, not looking at our cell phones when we're walking down the street, particularly when we're coming home at night. I think if we did a top 10, uh, be safe, be smart, be safe, and just remind people of things they already know to do, but get out of the habit of doing. Lock your car and don't leave it running. Lock your back doors, as I say. Turn on your porch lights, and have motion sensor lights, things like that. If we could do common sense activities, I think we would reduce a lot of the crimes of opportunity that are occurring, both car theft and house thefts.
Sounds good. Sounds good. People, lock your doors. Um,
But
and
we forget.
I'm
That's
guilty.
just got to
I
remind
grew up
people.
with my door unlocked. I'm still guilty. Yes, I grew up used to just being somebody knocking the door, just yelling, "Come on in," and allowing people to come in. Um, but we have to get to a point, unfortunately, where we have to make sure that our families are safe, our prized possessions are safe, and then we have to lock our doors. We really do. We have to lock
And,
our doors.
and pay attention. I have to tell my adult daughters they're driving down my alley. They'll be looking at their phone. When they're driving down the alley, look in the alley. If you see something that makes you uncomfortable, if you see something, drive around. Be paying attention to where you're walking and or driving. Just be paying attention to the area around you. And I think we could really reduce almost by half a lot of
Mm.
the theft and car thefts that occur. I was there in Ward 4, and some delivery persons delivering groceries. Just 30 seconds, boom, somebody jumped in the car and drove off on it right in front of me. Um, so it only takes seconds to happen. So that's why we have to, just be in the habit of smart habits. Be in the habit of smart habits. That's what I say.
Now, getting back to the violence portion, um, I'm a huge supporter, and actually our organization as a whole, we are a huge supporter of community-based violence prevention. And violence prevention, at least our programs under the mayor have been kind of getting, under some scrutiny. Some say it's effective, some say it's been ineffective, some say it's not managed well, some say the attorney general has a better program for violence prevention. How would you balance law enforcement resources with community-based violence prevention?
Well, I think the real thing is to get into the schools at the grade school level, at the high school level, and engage people with communication skills. We
Hmm.
teach math, English, etc. Let's teach communications. Let's talk how to talk down situations rather than escalate situations. What I would like to see is courses in the schools where communication is a course, where dialogue is a course, versus, don't get me wrong, I'm all for English and math and sciences. but a lot of the life skills training could be happening in the schools as well that could de-escalate situations. I used to, I worked in homeless shelters for many years. The situation was often de-escalates. Somebody becomes agitated. Somebody's does this or that. There's an art or a habit of de-escalating the situation, and that's what our police need to know how to communicate and de-escalate. That's what our average residents need to know. That's what we need to be expressing ourselves in a way that de-escalate situations rather than escalate situations. And I think that goes to education early on at the grade school and high school level.
While we're on the subject of education, I do want to ask you something that's actually it's been a hot topic across all 8 wards. Um, Many Ward 1 residents, I know for sure, many Ward 1 students, should I say, um, our Ward 1 kids usually have to travel outside of Ward 1 for education.
Yes, it's
Do you
completely
think that
wrong.
that's, as an educator, I can see how so many violent encounters happen and how so many issues happen just from the commute and the travel of our students. It's hard to keep this gang separated from this gang if they have to catch the same green line together.
Yep.
It's just it's really tough. How would you address that?
Well, you brought up a key issue, is which is a lot of Ward One families send their children to outside the ward. Both my children went to DC public schools, but they went across the park to John Eaton in Ward Three, and then they went to Walls High School in Ward Two for high school. We need an Alice Deal middle school in Ward One. We don't really have that. We have the Columbia Heights Education Campus is good, but so many families end up sending the kids over to Alice Steele over in Ward 3. And then for high school, they send them over to Reed Jackson,
Exactly.
which had Ben Wilson. A lot of our Ward 1 families, I need a Reed Jackson level high school in Ward 1. I need an Alice Steele level middle school in Ward 1 where people are walking to their classes and walking home. We can improve our schools. We've got good schools, but they can be a lot better. We need to improve them and give our resources. Maria Takeva at Columbia Heights at Bell, I need to give her the resources where parents who are living on Mount Pleasant side of on Mount Pleasant Adams Morgan side. Yes, we want to send our kids to Cardozo. That's not happening. We should be sending our kids to Cardozo and Bell, and that's not happening. There's a real bifurcation in the school system, and that should not be happening. We've changed it around to Mount Pleasant for the grade school Bancroft. We finally have families have bought into Bancroft. We've got black, Hispanic, white families, families that live in the neighborhood. They used to send their kids out of school to Sheridan, um, to Georgetown. They used to send, but now that's not happened. They have bought in at Bancroft. We can do that with our middle schools and high schools. We've got to do that. We've got to repeat what we succeeded with at Bancroft. We've got to succeed with that at our middle school and high schools in Ward 1, where families can attend those schools in the ward. That's not happening right now.
Yes, and it would just alleviate so many issues, in my
Yep.
opinion. Just that
It would.
one fix would just change so much, so much.
Cardozo should be a jewel that all our families in Ward 1 want to go to Cardozo. That's not the case. We can turn it around.
Yes, and I encourage our listeners to check out if you haven't had a chance to look up the history, especially in Ward 1, of the high schools in Ward 1. Really check them out. These schools have history behind them, and Cardoza is definitely one of them. Is definitely one of them. We have about 15 minutes left, and there are a few more things that I wanted to talk to you um, about um, that stuck out to me. Uh, add desperately needed housing for all. We kind of touched on it with the safety. We kind of touched on it with the Adams Morgan. Um, we had a few. We talked about a few unhoused people that passed away, unfortunately. Um, in Ward One, as many know, I lived there. But when I branched out from Granddad, I had to move to Ward 7. I could not afford to live in Ward 1. And Ward 1 actually has co-ops where I thought that I would definitely be able to get in, and still couldn't find stable housing. What would you do to improve housing in Ward 1?
Again, it's not rocket science here. What we've got in Ward 1 is we have a plethora of vacant buildings. You go
Mhm.
to Georgia Avenue in Kenyon, for example, there's been a market there right at the corner there, Georgia Kenyon, that's been closed for, I don't know, 20 years. That needs to be redeveloped for mixed use housing and retail. We have an apartment building in the heart of Adams Morgan, a 20-unit apartment building that's vacant for decades. That needs to be got back on the market. I am committed to seeing, and I definitely believe we can, given the large vacancies we have. I think we can get 5,000 units of affordable and mixed use housing combined with retail in the ward. It's a side by side, block by block walk, but I think we have the capacity, the space to develop up to 5,000, if not more, units of mixed use housing, affordable housing, along with retail and community services. Look, one of my big things was 1990s. Oliver Car Company, office companies, they just want downtown to be all offices. I said that creates a dead zone at night. We need residents living here. We need retail. We need arts. I helped to draft and get passed the requirement that housing be built on the sites in downtown. Now, a lot of that ends up being more expensive, but it added residents, it added vitality, added eyes on the streets. We can do the same in our neighborhoods. We need to have mixed uses. We need to eyeball each and every site and say, if you've had a property, if you're an owner who's had a property sitting vacant for 3 or more years, that's a blight on the neighborhood. We should be doing eminent domain and or working with them, pay them fair market value, and put the building back into use for retail and housing. We can do that. There's Howard University. I'm going to ask Howard University. They've got large blocks along Georgia Avenue of buildings that have been vacant for years. I want to sit down with them as soon as I'm elected to say, what do we do to get mixed use housing and education services on these large empty blocks along Georgia Avenue? We can't turn around Georgia Avenue to make it safer and vital if you have an entire block just being used to park transit vans for Howard University. That doesn't cut it. So I want to bring in the stakeholders, whether it's the owners of these large vacant properties, whether it be the university, whether it be small family homes that have sat vacant. I have townhouses, one on Irving Street, that's been vacant for over 20 years, single townhouses. I think most everybody knows a house on their block that's been vacant. So I want to go really after the properties that have been vacant for 3 or more years and turn that around to where the city is engaged with those owners and seeing that those units get back into use and or we develop mixed use housing on larger sites that are vacant. And we can.
Um,
Downtown, what we've achieved downtown, we can achieve in our neighborhoods and make it affordable.
so that's kind of like plans for affordable housing production and I guess preservation. Are you willing? Are you willing to go as far as zoning reforms to keep longtime residents from being priced out?
Absolutely. We need to have strong and effective rent control. Somebody has been living, has been a good tenant, good resident. They shouldn't be saddled with the exorbitant rent increases. That's wrong. Um, we've got a lot of working class families that they're not seeing the double digit salary increases to pay that. So we need to look at property by property how we can maintain what we have as affordable units, but also be creative and look at are the city-owned sites that are out there. Um, Another example would be the police station on Georgia Avenue up at Georgia and around Quackerbos. Huge parcel of land, an outdated police facility that could be redeveloped for a lot of affordable housing as well as a new state of the art police station. But sits there. I'm parking a lot of cars where I should be having people living in an outdated facility that should be much larger, much more productive than it is. So that we have a lot of opportunities. That would be a perfect example. A city-owned site that should be turned over to mixed use as including housing as well as public safety.
Sounds good. Now, here's something that touches a bit personally for me. And I'm sure you already know, but black home ownership has decreased significantly in parts of world, which of course indicates displacement, quite frankly. Now we talked about affordable housing, but as far as specifically black and minority, should I add, home ownership, which is, let's just be frank about it, is that there is a significant uh, gap when it comes to the income. Black households in World One have far lower median incomes than white households. Uh, so when it comes to black home ownership, do you have any thoughts and ideas?
My first thought is work with churches, where people often go to church, work with churches, but also universities, Howard, Georgetown, Trinity, to do programs where we're actively reaching out to individual homeowners. What are their plans? It's not for me to say to any family, oh, you've got to keep it in the household, you got to keep, pass it down to your kids. But let's reach out to neighbors. Let's offer programs saying, what's going to happen in the next generation? Look,
Mm,
I'm old. I'm 66. I may not be here in 20 years. I've got to do the planning now is how am I going to make my house still be available, affordable to my daughters? And or if not, how do we best move it to another family? So I would like to do creative programs through the universities and through the churches where we're reaching out to our current homeowners saying, what are your plans? What are you thinking about doing? Uh, Things aren't going to stay the same. At some point, yes, you're either going to have to move out of that house for health reasons. I deal with seniors. I have a senior I'm responsible for. Um, you're not going to be able to stay in the house, or you're going to want to sell it, or help. Perhaps we can help you stay in the house. So I want to see if the universities, particularly Howard, Georgetown, Trinity, GW, and the churches will work to reach out to current homeowners to help them plan for their future. So yes, if they want, the family can continue to own and stay in the house. If they don't, that's perfectly fine. How do we help them make the most money they can when they want to? So we need to work with homeowners where they are to help them realize their goals for their families and their properties.
awesome. So I got about two more questions for you. And the first, I want to talk about our libraries and our parks and recreation. I have been I was very disappointed, should I say. I went to Mount Pleasant Library to find it closed. uh, but that type of neighborhood, I have a lot of peers in that neighborhood. Um, it's like if we don't go to that library, then we're forced to travel probably to Shaw. Um, so, in your opinion, how would you handle things to make sure that we have reliable access to libraries and the resources that it provides in case of closures?
Yep.
Also,
I
rec centers and public spaces.
I had the good fortune to serve on Mayor Williams' library task force. The libraries hadn't been touched in decades. Well, with
Hmm.
John Hill, Richard Levy, myself, a few others, he said, let's renovate and restore the libraries, the neighborhood libraries, and the central library. Let's make them smart. Let's make them mixed use. And we've almost completed all the library renovations. They're smarter and greener. Mount Pleasant Library was closed because it was so heavily used. After 10 years, the systems needed to be restored. Finally, it's back open. But I think we need another library. I've been an advocate and I've been pushing. Can we get another library between here and Shaw. I would like one in Amps Morgan. I would like one
Yes.
along the East Street corridor. I'd like a library in Cardozo. I would like a library. We can get one there because it's a community service center now. So my real goal would to be to have another library in addition to the Mount Pleasant Library, but have one south of here, somewhere along the East Street corridor and along Cardozo. We need another library for sure, as you point out.
Oh my gosh, you just spoke music. Oh my gosh, that right there alone just made me smile. Oh my gosh,
I
you.
would like to include a library in the redevelopment of the Reeves building. Those properties we have the underutilized police station, which is just a one story. We could get a library when we redevelop it. Then we should have a state of the art police station, but we also should have community services and housing instead of a parking garage and a one story building. So we can get a library there, I think. So.
It's crazy because I was there with I went to a meeting with Commissioner. Is his name Alex?
Alex Padros? Yeah, could be.
No, it was Alex. It might have been. It was like Keswick or something.
I'm not sure. Not sure.
Oh, I'm not sure. I am live on the show. No, it was Alan Kinzick or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, and I had went to one of the community meetings right there, and it was actually in the police station, and they were talking about the police station and the fire station having to close and get renovated, and also just laying out some proposals of an entire new outline of a facility. And I actually raised my hand and asked about a library there. And a lot of people agree. So I mean, there is such an energy and
Absolutely.
for it.
Absolutely. That is an outdated building built, who knows, late 50s, 60s. It's, frankly, I think it's a piece of junk at this point. It's not efficient. It's not smart. It's not green. It's mostly dedicated to parking. So let's take it down. Let's get a vibrant mixed use building in there, inclusive of community service, such as a library, such as a hardware store, as well as housing, as well as a police services station. So uh, we can do far better than we've been doing. That's for sure.
And the last thing I wanted to touch on, as I said, that speaking of Mount Pleasant, there's actually a park directly across the street that I like. I love my greens. I love my nature. I love to go to parks. I actually make it a personal task of mine that at least, and I got this from my dear brother, my former pastor. Shout out Pastor Delonte Goldston of Peace Fellowship Church and Peace Walks DC. But he challenged me and he said, Mike, I want you to take at least one day a week and just spend some time with yourself and meditate with yourself and just watch what that do for your mental health. And I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I tell you, it's definitely beneficial. But what I'm getting at is I have two favorite parks. Number two is in Southwest, the Duck Pond. I love the Duck Park. And my absolute favorite is what I call Malcolm X, but I think it's now Meridian Hill Park right there. I believe that's 16th Street and V, I guess you can say.
16th and W. It's between W and Euclid on 16th
Yeah,
Street,
yeah.
between 16th and 15th. It runs the whole block. It's a fabulous, historic, iconic, which the federal government has abused and let slide many of these parks in the city. It's not the city's responsibility, it's the feds. They own many of these parks like that, which they have allowed to decay. They've cut the staff to a skeleton crew. I was dealing with Meridian Hill Park and the man who in charge as well, Mr. Lynch, they've cut us down to just one. So all these federal layoffs have really impacted the quality of the federal parks. We've got to turn it around. Supposedly, the feds are now fixing the iconic fountain after 7 or 8 years of being off. Maybe finally they're fixing it, but we've got to keep the pressure up on the National Park Service. Restore our parks, and they control the large majority of the parks in the city, actually, not the city.
But at that park specifically, if you go, it's like a tale of two cities. If you go upstairs, if you go all the way up to the top of the park, it's pretty flat. You can pretty see. The grass is nice. My favorite part, unfortunately, is the part where they're fixing the fountain and the waters, and in each kind of sitting section, if you will, is kind of secluded. Uh, and I love it. I can go there. I can read my book and just really meditate. Um, to the flip side of that, it feels very, very unsafe, especially at night. Um, Usually, sometimes I remember coming home from work at times and just walking through, and people walk through from the grocery store and from work, but there are other times where you come through, and there are people that are just there having a good time. You mentioned that the fountain was getting fixed. There's also an electrical box in there that's the lock is broken. Every time I go there, the lock is broken and people are using it to charge their phones and so forth. I love that park, but I need to feel safe while I'm in that park. And I
I couldn't
understand.
agree more. Could not agree more. We need to restore it. We need to get the feds to do what they can. The masonry crumbles, the locks, the tree space, cut down the dead limbs, replant with new native plants, get rid of the invasive vines. There's a whole A to Z that could be done to restore public use and confidence in that park. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Do you think that you have the ability to work with um, Congresswoman Norton, or if she's supplanted in this election with our Congress representative?
We have to. It's a team approach. If we're going to deal with a green nation's capital, we've got to have Maryland, Virginia, and DC's got to be on the same boat, paddling the same direction to keep our rivers clean. We've got to be on the same boat with the feds if we're going to maintain all these federal parks and facilities, all these federal buildings. The FBI building, it's crumbling. We need to get it replaced. We need to work with our federal partners. We need to work with our state partners. We need to be working together if we're going to really have lasting fixes. We talked about the driving safety. If we can't get Maryland and Virginia to help us, it's going to be hard to get some of the dangerous drivers off the road who are a danger to everyone. So it's a team effort. It takes a team to win. That's what it takes. Not
Yes,
one player can carry the Commanders. It's got to be a team from the owner on down, right to the everyone throughout that franchise. It's a team effort to win.
agreed. Agreed. Are there any final thoughts? Anything you want to let the listeners know? And also, how can we reach you if we wanted to support you? How can we reach out to you?
Go to my website, www.terrylynchfordc. I'm easy to find, easy to reach. We're here to get done. Uh, I think I have a reputation. I get it done. I'll work with people to fix problems. The rats are winning. We can turn that around. I will not accept deaths of young men on U Street and Georgia Avenue as business as usual. I don't accept that. I don't accept having schools that aren't first class. We can do better, and we will do better. I can't thank you enough for having me.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming, and I would definitely hope that soon we can get together in person, whether it's a cup of coffee or tea or something, and really talk. I definitely would love to pick your brain a little further about your efforts with Calvary. It's just amazing work that you have done, my brother. And I am extremely honored to be able to say that Mr. Terry Lynch was a guest on the People's Voice DC.
Oh, the honor was mine, and you remind me of one of my favorite songs, "Is Soon and Very Soon." So, soon and very soon, we will make it happen. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. And you're always welcome to come back. But I guess we'll look forward to having you come back as our next council member for Ward 1.
We're working towards that, and the people make their choice, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So that's going to wrap up our episode of the People's Voice DC. As you guys saw, we had a guest, Terry Lynch, who's a candidate for Ward 1. Please go and visit his website, terrylynch4dc.com, and understand that in this city, this is a very, very pivotal and crucial election. We are potentially electing a new mayor. Well, we're definitely electing a new mayor, and 3 new council members will be sitting at the table. A lot of us have complained about where our city is heading or where our city has been, and at the People's Voice, we encourage you to stop complaining and raise your voice. And raising your voice also means making sure that you get out to vote. If y'all don't know, we at the People's Voice, at Rising Voices of Politics, our parent company, we believe that everyone deserves a fair shot. So as you see various candidates coming onto our show and our platform, no, we don't endorse candidates. Me personally, as a man of the cloth, I don't endorse candidates. But I do want to highlight some of the things that they do, some of the things that they stand for, and the purpose of this show is to make sure constituents' voices are heard, but also that constituents know who they're voting for, that they're educated on who is on the ballot when the time comes. And Ward 1, Terry Lynch is on the ballot. And we believe everyone deserves a fair shot. Petitions will come out at the end of the month. People also need funds raised. So please, if something stood out to you, whether it was bike lanes, whether it was housing, whether it was public safety, please go visit the website and reach out to Mr. Lynch. I am your favorite host, Pastor Mike, and this is the People's Voice. I will see you next week.
All right, real quick. If you've ever yelled at your phone like, man, why nobody ever talks about this? Congratulations. This podcast is for you. Welcome to the People's Voice, DC, where the city finally gets the mic. And nah, this ain't one of those podcasts where everybody sounds smart, but nobody actually saying anything. We talk real life, DC life. The kind of conversations you have after work, on the metro, or when the group chat gets serious out of nowhere. Yeah, we talk politics, but don't worry. Nobody yelling over each other. Nobody reading off cue cards. And definitely nobody pretending they got it all figured out. We're talking housing, money, schools, mental health, culture, faith, purpose, relationships. Basically all the stuff that actually affects your life, but somehow never gets explained right. This podcast is powered by Rising Voices of Politics and founded by Reverend Michael Campbell. But listen, you don't gotta be a politician, a preacher, or an expert in nothing to belong here. If you got opinion, questions, or just a story to tell, you already qualify. And the energy, chill, honest, a little funny. Sometimes deep, sometimes light, but always real. Catch us live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and social media. Miss it? Cool. It drops the same night at risingvoicesdc.org, and you can listen anytime on Spotify. So whether you're outside, inside, commuting, procrastinating, or just tired of podcasts that don't sound like you, tap in, tune in, laugh a little, learn something. This is the People's Voice, DC, where the conversations make sense. The people are real. And yeah, we might even say what you've been thinking.